Today is a great day, and I couldn't be more proud than to stand here with my colleagues and my friends, Joe Lieberman and John Warner. This bill that we're taking up on the floor of the Senate is tripartisan. It is Democratic, it is independent, it is Republican. It reflects this country. And when it comes to this issue, we have to turn away from partisanship, because this is about our children and their children. It's about the planet that we have inherited, and we must listen to the scientists. I'm going to key off this chart here, because today is a day to say yes to clean energy, yes to green jobs, yes to science, yes to energy independence, yes to tax relief. We have a very big part of the bill dedicated to that. Yes to helping our consumers. Yes to a diversified energy future. Yes to consumer protection. Yes to saving the rainforest. Yes to state and local action. Yes to a strong economy. We are leading with that. We are leading with that notion that this bill, in fact, will lead us to a strong economy with the creation of millions of new jobs, new technologies, and a way forward for our nation that is going to put us back, I think, into international leadership on environment and economy. Let me just say today, the President said he's going to oppose this bill. I think he actually issued a veto threat on the bill. And he cited the fact that gas prices could go up. So I want to take a second just dissecting that, because it's wrong. This is what has happened since President Bush came into office. We have seen a 250% increase in gas prices. And I would humbly say that lots of us from both parties have tried to take a stand against these prices, to talk about ways we can turn around some of these excess profits and help consumers. Frankly, they just haven't been helping us on that. And so it seems amazing to me that he takes the outside number. The studies have shown that at the worst, gas prices could go up 50 cents over the next 20 years. Figure it out. 50 cents over the next 20 years. And he has said that's a reason to veto this bill. Now, first of all, we don't believe that will happen, but let's just say it does happen. If you look at the bill the President did sign, the energy bill, which we're very grateful that he signed, the part especially that says we're going to increase fuel economy. That increase in fuel economy will mean that the average person will not have to pay any more, will not have to pay that 50 cents, because they'll get more efficiency. So that argument is very, very, very weak. And in a way, it does such a disservice to the grandness of this issue, the importance of this issue, the urgency of this issue. And then the last thing I want to say before I turn it over to my colleagues is I want to show you just some of the support that we have for this bill. I think it's important to understand that what we have done is work not only with our colleagues who have been extremely helpful, I mean extremely helpful, but also with so many others. This is labor support. You're going to hear from some of our colleagues, this is going to be bad for jobs. Just look at some of organized labor that's for this, and I will not read them all, but it's a very large and growing number of labor unions who support our bill. They see the jobs in the future. This is some of the business support. Here's some of these names: Alcoa, Avista, Calpine, Constellation Energy, E2, Entergy Corporation, Exelon Corporation, Florida Power and Light Group, General Electric, National Grid, NRG Energy, PG&E Corporation, Public Service Enterprise Group. And I want to say now that Senator Warner and Lieberman are going to be supporting some amendments on nuclear. I just want to note already we have business people in the nuclear energy area strongly for this bill without an amendment, because they know they have certainly a leg up when you look at clean energy in terms of carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions. Local government, the United States Conference of Mayors. These are the people that are on the ground with our constituents every single day. They're way out in front, way ahead of us. National Association, no, there's just one more, two more. National Association of Clean Air Agencies, Climate Communities, and National Coalition of Cities, Towns, Counties, and other communities. And lastly, the faith communities. You know, I had the honor of giving the Democratic radio address on Saturday, and I put in there a quote from the 8th century, which you've heard me give before, and I won't give it exactly now, but the essence of it is that when God created the first man, he took him around the garden and he said, "See my handiworks, you know, they are beautiful, and don't destroy this, because if you do destroy it, there will be no one to repair it after you." And this sentiment that we're getting from the religious community is very powerful. And here we have the Evangelical Environmental Network, the Evangelical Climate Initiative, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, the National Council of Churches, the Religious Action Center of Reformed Judaism, the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, the Interfaith Power and Light Campaign. The point is, this bill, and we have worked very hard on it, all of us, we have taken it from the very beginning and strengthened it, I think. This bill really speaks to the American people. It responds to the American people. It responds to the mayors. It responds to the counties. It responds to many governors who are saying, where is the national government? We are excited about this bill. We say yes, and we'll go back to that chart, the beginning chart. We say yes to a green future, to a clean future, to a healthy future, to a safer future. And now it is my really great honor to turn the podium over to Senator Joe Lieberman, a very senior member of the Environment and Public Works Committee, was on this issue before many of us were, and I'm so pleased that I've been able to partner with him and Senator Warner. Joe?
Thanks. Thanks very much, Barbara. I'm really honored to be here with you and John Warner. The Senate is going to do something today, beginning a debate on global warming that it has never done before. So in that sense, we're making history, which is to say this is the first time the Senate will debate a comprehensive bill to deal with climate change that is favorably reported out of a Senate committee. And there are two people responsible for this first for the U.S. Senate, and they're standing right here with me. John Warner's commitment to be part of a solution to this very urgent and real problem enabled us to put together a bipartisan bill and bring it out of the committee. Barbara Boxer's leadership of the committee as chair drove it every step of the way. So the first thing I wanted to say is thank you to my two colleagues, friends, for what you've done to bring us to this day. We've got a lot of work to do, however. The problem of global warming is a big problem, and it requires a big solution. This is a big, complicated bill, and it results from an initial commitment to do something about global warming, exploring the various ways we could do it, deciding, Senator Warner and I, that we didn't want to raise carbon taxes. We didn't want to create a carbon tax. On the other hand, we weren't prepared responsibly to step back and just sort of hope a solution comes along voluntarily, and that's how we came up with the market-based comprehensive cap-and-trade system. We've been at this probably more than a year, John. And we've spent a lot of time talking to stakeholders in every part of this issue, in every part of our economy, and every part of our country. We've spent the months since our bill came out of the committee continuing those conversations and working with our colleagues in the Senate. And the bill that we have before the Senate, the substitute Senator Boxer disclosed last week, which the two of us are co-sponsors of, reflects all those changes. I will tell you, as we work with interest groups here and some of our colleagues, that I have the feeling when it comes to global warming that the American people are ahead of America's politicians. They know there's a problem here, and they want us to solve it. They want us to solve it for them, for their children, for their grandchildren, for future generations of America, because they don't want American life to be changed. They want future Americans to live the same quality of life in this beautiful country that we've been privileged to grow up with. And that's not going to happen unless we pass a bill like this. And that's why we're facing real resistance from people who don't want to change. But unless they change, America and the world are not going to be, for future generations, as great and beautiful as they've been for our generation. I want to deal with the argument of the day against the bill from opponents of the bill, which is that it will raise the cost of gasoline. I suppose this is an argument that's being made because people are obviously unhappy about the cost of gasoline. But I think the argument gets it exactly backwards. It's not passage of the Climate Security Act that will really raise gasoline prices. The fact is that if we pass the Climate Security Act, it will lower gasoline prices. Why is that? Why do I say that? Because this bill, in dealing with the problem of global warming caused by the emission of carbon dioxide, has to reduce America's dependence on oil, has to stimulate research and development of cleaner alternative sources of energy, has to put America on a path where we're no longer beholden to the tyrants in Iran or Venezuela who supply oil on the world market to power our country, no longer subject to the whims of an international cartel that sets oil prices. So this is the answer to the problem of gas prices. First, let me state the obvious. Gas prices have skyrocketed in the last year. That's not the fault of the Climate Security Act, because there has been no Climate Security Act. Second thing, as Senator Boxer said, the administration's own Energy Information Administration, part of the Department of Energy, in its estimate says that this bill, if passed, will raise the cost of gasoline about a little less than 2 cents a gallon per year. The American people would be thrilled to have the price of gasoline raised only 2 cents a gallon per year. And the great news is they'd be particularly thrilled if they felt that that 2 cents would be an investment in a whole new set of ways to power their cars and trucks that will actually make the cost of gasoline less. I guess the most clear way I can state it now is that if the Climate Security Act had been passed 10 years ago, we would not be paying $4 plus a gallon for gasoline today, because we'd be less dependent on foreign oil and driving cars that were powered by biofuel, by electricity, by the host of other alternatives that this bill will stimulate. This bill will advance more than $600 billion to develop and deploy advanced energy technologies. You know how people have been saying it's time that America had an energy security, energy independence program that was like the Manhattan Project or the Apollo Project? $600 billion is 6 times the investment America made in the Manhattan Project and the Apollo Project combined. A final statistic. I didn't blow up the chart, but here's the little chart. And it says this: if this Climate Security Act is adopted, by 2025, we will be using 8.6 million barrels of oil less per day. If we just do business as usual, the projection is that we'll be using 15 million barrels daily. U.S., if we adopt this bill, 6.4 million barrels per day. Now think about what that reduction in demand will do to the world price of oil. So we got a fight ahead of us, but it's a critical one, and we're going to win it.
I want to just bring it. No, I just have to say. No, of course, John Warner is a very humble man, but I just want you to know that He touched my heart so much when he came to me and said, I look at my grandkids, I listen to my children, and I want to be part of this solution. And he said to me, you know, for my whole life, he said, national security is what I've done here. But this is related to national security. We must act. And when he said that to me, I was touched and I was moved, and I knew at the moment we'd at least get it to this day. We are here at this day, and it is a monumental moment for us. And it's because of this man, John Warner.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Joe Lieberman and I have labored these almost a year now on this bill. And it really has been an exciting adventure, certainly for me, and I think many of us, and particularly our staffs, who worked so hard. But the gavel that you wielded got us to where we are at this moment, and we thank you for that. We also wish to thank many, many other senators. We had charts here about the organizations, but we literally approached, I'd say, a good 24 senators who, at one time or another, had done their own pioneering in terms of climate change. And we said forthrightly to them, as we put this bill together of some 500 pages, there will be parts in it that we would like to acknowledge are there because of your work. So my heartfelt thanks to our chairman, to my partner, to the members of the committee that gave us the support to get this thing through, and to the many other senators and organizations who made vital contributions. National security was the reason I got interested. When a catastrophe happens in this world, the phones are lifted to call our president, the commander-in-chief, and ask for help. I mean, right at this moment, the tragedies in Burma, I have no idea whether the problems in Burma are associated with global climate change. But I do know it's the United States Navy and other elements of our military that are standing offshore to help. We see it in Africa this day, a nation that is absolutely ravaged by unparalleled droughts. We see it in areas of the world where water is short. We see it where the forests are going down. They turn to the good old USA, and particularly the military, to help them out. That's why I think the United States has to lead. And that's why I'm privileged to be a part of that team to see whether or not we can lead. I look upon this global climate change effort as if it were a great big mighty steam railroad engine in a station ready to go. Boilers burning, ready to start its journey down the track. And I'd be the first to tell you I cannot predict every twist and turn in that track. But I do say, unreservedly, take the hands off the brake, let the train start, and let it make its way and show that the United States is joining much of the rest of the world in trying to get to the bottom of a problem, assuming it exists, with global climate change. I said the train because I felt it important that someone have its hand on the throttle at all times. And I have here an amendment that I put into the manager's amendment entitled Presidential Emergency Declaration and Congressional Proclamations. Presidential and congressional partnership. If something goes wrong with that train as it moves, if unpredictable twists and turns in our economy occur, if we're not able to advance the technology in a timely way to do carbon sequestration, and if there are other problems associated with national security, energy, or the economy, the president has the stick to bring back the throttle and reset timetables. And literally, the President of the United States is given by this bill the authority to change provisions in the bill subject to approval of Congress. And we employ a formula which is time-tested here in Congress by which to give the President that power and then to reserve to the Congress through its oversight responsibilities and other responsibilities, the chance to say, we agree, Mr. President, or don't agree. Now, another component is nuclear power. I was privileged one time to be Secretary of the Navy. We had over 100 nuclear plants operating almost entirely aboard ship, but several stateside. I have been a part of this movement in our United States through over half of my life. It can be made safe. It has been made safe by the United States Navy, and fortunately, our industrial base has made it safe for local consumption and use of it. There is no solution to our energy problem without enhanced nuclear participation. And so this amendment, I've provided copies here for ready reference. I'm going to put on, hopefully as the very first amendment, Madam Chairman. Again, it states this is where we are in nuclear power. Let's do everything to help the current infrastructure to get started towards adding more plants. We recognize today much of a plant being built in the near future will be manufactured overseas. Let's put an end to that. We also recognize that when this country shut off all of its effort to go forward with nuclear power a dozen or more years ago, young people turned to other professions. We've got to incentivize them to get the education and do what is necessary so they can join as technology moves forward for safe nuclear power. Lastly, it was touched on about the people of the United States. I find this really an exciting moment in my 30 years in the Senate today, because I believe the final result of this bill in the Senate in the coming days, perhaps a week or more, is going to be determined by how the American public reacts to the Congress at long last getting one of these bills up. And that, I say to you most respectfully, is a challenge that's going to be largely a consequence of what you write and how you interpret, and I hope it'll be fair and objective as to this debate as we go forward. Because the American public in the coming days could stand up and be counted in such a way as to be convincing of that number of senators that we need to see that this bill has 60 votes and goes forward. I think I'll stop at that, but I do want to point out one thing, though. This presidential statement we all received here within the hour has got one little sentence in it that intrigues me, and that is, I'm convinced that you have to have mandatory cap and trade. And this states as follows: to ensure that all major economies are bound, I repeat, are bound to take action and to work cooperatively with our partners for a fair and effective international climate agreement. This bill binds the United States to that requirement.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senators. I wanted to thank one more person that I should have thanked, and we all should have, and we didn't, and that is the person responsible for taking this bill and scheduling it. That was a courageous decision by Senator Reid. And, you know, there were a lot of voices saying, why now? And he basically said, because this is a major issue, we need to get started on it. So I wanted to thank him. And I saw him giving a really excellent speech, by the way, on the floor about global warming. Anyway, we're happy to take your questions. Yeah.
Boxer, you voted against the last version of the routine labor
I did.
bill because it had extra nuclear amendments there. Will this nuclear amendment change your mind about this legislation?
Well, let me tell you, we've spoken about this a lot. I've worked with my colleagues, and they both, as you know, are very strong supporters of doing more for nuclear in this bill. There are certain things I could accept and certain things that I couldn't accept. What falls under what I could accept is certainly funding to train our workers, certainly funding to produce certain components in this country, certainly components for plant safety, and we've discussed this. So I'm going to say today that I look forward to seeing how this amendment goes and what are the details in it. And there's a certain point where I know John and Joe feel, you know, they need to stay on this bill. They need a certain amount to stay on it, and I need a certain amount not to get off it. So we're looking for that sweet spot of legislation, and we're very hopeful we can do it. Yes.
One of the things that was mentioned at the rally was a need for increased public transit funding. What kind of impact will that have on various local public transit?
Okay, you're talking about transit funding?
Correct.
The transit funding in the bill was really put in there by Senator Cardin. And the whole notion is, what's the low-hanging fruit in the early years? And that really is what we know we can do now. If we have good transit systems now, we can get people to put less carbon in the air. I've been told I need to go onto the floor. Could I leave my two colleagues here to answer the questions?
Sure.
And if they say anything I don't agree with, I reserve the right to disagree with them. But I just want to say, in going down to the Senate floor right now, this is a moment to be marked. This isn't a usual moment, because, again, as Senator Lieberman said, this is the first bill that's made its way through the committee, a comprehensive bill. If it passes as it is, without any strengthening amendments, okay, it would be the strongest bill in the world. And it will get the United States right up there again, back in the leadership in the world, on an environmental issue that is also good for our economy, good for our consumers, good for our foreign policy, good for world peace. All those good things, interestingly, come along with a very wise bill such as this one. So I'll leave you with my two friends, and I'll go down the floor and impart some wisdom down there. Yeah. Yeah. I said I have to go down the floor.
Just one quick question. The Republicans are calling it a tax bill.
Oh, I have to answer
calling it a tax
that. I have to answer that.
Keep asking
I have
questions
to.
like
I have to.
that.
Okay, last thing. That is misinformation and untruth. The fact is, this bill calls for almost $1 trillion of tax relief. That's in this bill. Almost $1 trillion of tax relief. In addition, there's almost $1 trillion of help for consumers that will be distributed by the utility companies, the power companies, and so on. So anybody who says, Republican or Democratic, that this is a tax bill, this is not a tax bill. And anyone who says this causes a deficit problem, they're wrong. This is deficit neutral as certified by CBO. And I will leave the rest to my colleagues.
Okay. Yes.
How disappointed are you that Senator McCain is not supporting this bill, and do you think it undercuts his support for the solution to climate change?
Well, no, I personally think that Senator McCain will support this bill in the end. I think he's waiting to see particularly what happens with the bill with regard to nuclear energy, because he feels very strongly that unless we have a program to support and stimulate the development of nuclear energy in this country, we're not going to actually be able to solve the global warming problem, because nuclear energy in the end is zero carbon emitting. I'll tell you, I was at a totally unrelated meeting with Senator McCain today. It was happened to be a closed meeting. He was talking about foreign policy, but then at the end he just went into a riff on the climate change and our bill and how important he thought it was. So he'll have the final decision, but he's been part of this from the very beginning. And I expect that at the end of this, when the critical vote occurs, he'll be with us.
Did he give you a specific commitment?
I didn't ask him. I just listening to him. I know he has some questions about this bill and again about the nuclear energy, but he has been in the forefront of bipartisan efforts to do something about climate change from the beginning, and I'm just very confident. Therefore, he'll be with us when the vote occurs.
Senator, if President Bush vetoes the bill as he's threatened to do, what do you think the chances would be that it would be overridden?
Well, that's way ahead of us. I mean, look, those who don't want the changes that this bill requires are still fighting pretty hard against it. I'll anticipate a question we're going to ask. How many votes do I think we're going to get? I don't know, but I am where I was the last time some of you asked me, which is I feel confident we're going to get over 50. We have a shot at 60, but it's going to be hard, and it's not going to happen unless exactly what John said happens, which is that the American people get on the phone, call their senators and say, we want you to do something about global warming. And look, this is a bill that will cover more than 4 decades. So, and it doesn't start until 2012. So, but the important thing is to start. And then we can come back and fix as we go along.
Senator, the countries that export to the United States that don't have emissions limits, when they sell their products in the United States under this bill, they'll have to purchase allowances in order to...
We've got provisions in there which will govern international trade in compliance with the established international law as to how to deal with a company or a country that is taking no steps towards global warming and could, in effect, put in that segment of the industrial base at a disadvantage. So there is power in there. And always remember, we've given power to the President of the United States to write in and put in those provisions he or she deems are necessary.
Would those require purchase allowances to get their products sold? Is that in compliance with WTO rules?
Everything we've done here is to be in compliance with the world framework of WTO rules. Yes.
Let me just real quickly add something your question brings to mind. I happen to have been at an Asia-Pacific Security Conference in Singapore over the last 3 or 4 days. Secretary Gates was there, and there were high defense officials there from just about every country in Asia. And I was really moved by the number of them who know about this bill and urged us on. And this is a matter of security. I mean, hey, in Singapore, the leader of the country, Lee Kuan Yew, said they're beginning to consult with companies in Europe about how to build dikes, because if water levels go up a meter, he said we can probably survive. If they go up more than a meter, a third or more of Singapore is going to be underwater. The defense official from Bangladesh said that if the waters rise, as the scientific estimates suggest, they could have a migration of more than 5 million people from the coastal areas. And so the world is watching this, and I think the world, including folks in Asia, are going to themselves put pressure on the great rising economies of China and India to be part of this global solution.
Senator Warner, considering that Boxer said she would rather pull a bill than have a poison pill amendment, do you think this will pass before you leave office?
Well, I know exactly where I'm leaving office. The Constitution of the United States said on the 3rd of January 2009, now I'm out of here, having finished 30 years and a wonderful opportunity to serve my country and my state. And I thank all those who made it possible, including some in this room who looked kindly on me the years past. But the point is, I'm not going to touch that issue. I'm an old football player. I never had a coach try to tell me, what do we do if we lose? I'm going in with the concept we're going to win, and I'm going to keep my shoulder to the wheel until that final vote is taken.
Incidentally, I want to express my optimism that Senator Boxer, if the amendment that John Warner and I are introducing to support nuclear energy development in this country passes, I believe it's within the acceptable range and will not lead Senator Boxer to oppose the bill.
Senator, whether the bill passes or not, do you think that voters are paying attention to this and that it could...
Yeah, it's a very important question, and I failed to bring up my observation on that. All 50 states in some way are addressing global warming. All 50. And to me that poses a challenge to those states that are not moving swiftly to take step with the others. And secondly, it poses a problem to the American industry, and indeed the power industry and others, to try and cope with 50 different legislative frameworks of how global climate change, energy conservation is to be handled in those states. This is why it's so imperative for the United States of America, the federal government, to move out. And we've given that president all the power he needs. We've given the Congress all the power it needs in terms of oversight of how the funds that are generated by this cap and trade process are to be expended. So everybody has got a hand on the throttle, the President, the Congress, and most of all, the American public, to express hopefully their consent through their elected leaders.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.